Greetings, brethren and sisters. This is Gillie Priest of Gillie Priest Revolutionary Radio. And today I'm going to cover several topics in this reasoning for this program. We are going to continue on with the master's thesis, laying out the reason behind the establishment of the Rastafari Promise Key Seminary while we was in the prison system, and now we have transported it to the outside, which is basically a larger prison. Society is nothing but a regulated structure, which is still a form of imprisonment. We are going to continue with this. But before I continue with this, I want to give some developments pertaining to Forged by Time. And as a lot of you have already known, this is my autobiography, Forged by Time, which basically highlights a segment of my life, which surrounds my imprisonment in the United States for 45 years for crimes I never committed. And it lays out the political shenanigan that led to my imprisonment. As usual, thanks for your support, and I'm still requesting your support in purchasing this book. Basically, it is how I survive out here, and I can participate and better have more time to better develop the Rastafari Gillie Priest Revolutionary Radio. Now, when we speak of Rastafari in terms of Gillie Priest Revolutionary Radio, my intent is not necessarily to develop this program from a specific Rastafari perspective. But since Rastafari deal with liberation, and my number one focus is liberation, then every now and then I will segue in and out from the nuance of addressing the liberation struggle from a Rastafari perspective. But I do not intend to make this program an exclusive Rastafari program, because I deal with liberation. And anyone who can join the formation for the liberation of the African people and the African race and the African nation, you're welcome. See, but this is our struggle. And first and foremost, we have to be the one, we Africans have to be the one who characterize this liberation struggle, who lead this liberation struggle, who give direction to this liberation struggle, who theoretically defines this liberation struggle. And anyone who chooses to be an appendage or an auxiliary to it, you're more than welcome. Before I go there, so I want to touch upon something else. Finally, I have incorporated a structure, a legally incorporated structure, which is incorporated under the name Forged by Time Limited. It is now a legal entity established in Jamaica in order to carry out the worldwide struggle of liberation of the African race. By me incorporating this corporate structure, and remember, the name of this legally established corporatized structure is Forged by Time Limited. And it's my intention to use this corporate struggle, this corporate entity, to carry out my intent of traveling this world to give lectures upon liberation, lectures upon the content of Forged by Time autobiography, and to use it to organize and structuralize my international travel, which I'm planning on really embarking upon sometime early next year. I have to lay the structure and lay the foundation of this travel. And I want to share the vision of this struggle. In this world, whenever you see an individual at the forefront of any type of undertaking, whether private or public, if this person is getting the most optimal and efficient use of his or her time while being at the forefront, it is only because there's an efficient structure behind this individual. When you watch, for example, you watch a entertainment presentation, a stage show, a play, or you even watching a movie on a television, the whole technical aspect that makes that presentation possible is because there's a structure behind the program, or there's a structure behind the individual. So my intention is not to go out in the world and travel this world without a structure behind me. I'm not one who is fascinated by the one-man band thing. I need a technical structure with experts for every field that is necessary to make this travel throughout the world, to make this sojourn throughout the world be the most optimal and the most efficient. And that is one of the main reasons why I incorporated Forged by Time Limited as a legal corporate entity with the legal backing to function anywhere in the world. So my interaction henceforth, unless I'm dealing with people on a personal basis, any and all interaction with me going forward will be through Forged by Time Limited Corporation. We have to learn how to legalize and structuralize things to get the most efficient out of it. Not to be corporatized in order to imprison you, but to seek efficiency and legality. Come here, I tell Matt Bridging them something. You see, legality is the most powerful entity on the face of this earth, you know. Speaking within a structural system. And that is the reason why you find in all wars, in all confrontation, in all interaction, people with sense seek to hold the high ground of legality. And that is the reason why whatever you do to challenge Babylon, the first thing Babylon try to do is to push you out of the realms of legality and push you over into illegality. Because they have conditioned and indoctrinated society to equate legality with what is right and correct. And once they can push you outside of that realm, then the very society that you seek to free will turn and condemn you. So even when you have a revolutionary organization functioning outside of the law and challenging the system, they are the ones who have the moral compass to know that it was not they themselves that forced themselves out of society, but they were forced out of society by the illegal acts of those who perpetuate this fraudulent scheme that they are the ones who are legal. And because of this, the economy, what you find happens a lot of time, people confuse this criminality with being a rebel, with being a revolutionary. So when we talk about incorporating and corporatizing our structure in order to function, it is for one to seek the ability to gain access to that which the state try to reserve for themselves. So corporatizing our things in order to travel this world is where we seek optimal benefits and efficiency to carry this message forward. Now this is the vision. Through Forged by Time Limited Corporation, I want to travel first and foremost, possibly, but not necessarily in this order, to make a tour throughout Jamaica, to do lectures and presentation to different audiences. The intention of Forged by Time Limited is to also travel throughout the Caribbean. And after accessing the Caribbean, meeting with the Rastafari community, meeting with different liberation community, then to go South America, and then from South America goes up into Europe. So I'm talking about a worldwide global tour, which may encompass the possibility that once I leave Jamaica, I may not come back here for over 12 months. I may traverse the entire world before I come back to Jamaica in 12 months. Now, why am I sharing this vision? Outside of the fact that it's a tour and meet and lecture and teach and listen to people and solicit opinions and solicit contribution, is this. Once you get encompassed going to the different Caribbean islands, I want there to be a consistency for the purpose of financial efficiency to go from one island to the next natural step of another island. I do not want to crisscross the entire Caribbean. I want to set up an itinerary where I go from one island to the next island that should be logically followed on a circuitous basis. I do not want to go to Trinidad and then jump back to Barbados and then jump over to St. Vincent. That's waste of time, waste of resources, lack of efficiency. So Forged by Time Limited is going to try to structure this travel throughout the Caribbean, the Americas, South America, Central America, and then going up into Europe in the most logical and consistent travel route. Now, this is going to take resources. We cannot do all this travel, lack of resources. That is just a dream. So our Forged by Time Limited is envisioning this travel is that by trying to be the most efficient travel route is to have each and every island, those who we meet, the organization to which I shall present myself before, to sponsor the trip to the next island. So this thing are going to take a lot of working out. A lot of working out. It's not as easily said, done as said. So for example, should I go to Barbados first? This is just for conversational purpose. Should I go to Barbados first? And the next logical island to go to is, let's say, St. Vincent. Then those with whom I'm meeting with in Barbados, those organizations and groupings are the ones which will be required to cover the travel expense from Barbados to St. Vincent and Nevis. That is just an example. So we can have the tour pay for itself. And this is the pattern that we envision to employ through the entire travels. Now one may ask, how do I intend maybe to get into Europe? Well, we are working on that mechanism to get into Europe. And we are going to try to make it as smooth as possible. Try to make it as efficient as possible. Now, I'm saying this to lead to this. I need brethren and sisters that dealing with the liberation struggle of the African race from all the different islands, all the different nations, who are hearing and following Gillie Priest Revolutionary Radio to contact Forged by Time Limited Corporation. Contact us and let us know the part that you are willing to play in the sojourn throughout Babylon. Meaning that I need to have contact with individuals and groupings from each and every one of the nations and islands out there who would like for me to come and present myself before them with my lectures and teachings and listenings upon the Forged by Time tour. So Forged by Time Limited Corporation will be sponsoring the tour, which will be named Forged by Time Tour. So henceforth from today, I am looking forward for ones and ones, for different brethren and sisters to reach out to me and to reach out to Forged by Time Limited Corporation. And I will give the contacts at the end of this program or some point during this program. And let us know the part that you are willing to play, either as an individual or as a group, in sponsoring my visit to your country. And you also have to be willing to seek out within your country those in groupings with which I will appear before to make lectures, presentation, introduction of the book, so on and so forth. And you have to be organized at the level and capacity where there will be sufficient financial support for me to travel to the next island. We do not want Forged by Time tour to go to us any island and get stuck in that island, where we are scrambling for funds to make the travel to the. So that whole entire passage throughout the world, the globe, the entire thing has to be covered financially even before I leave Jamaica. So there will be no itching once I reach one island, and I may spend 4 or 5 days in that island, and when it's time to go to the next island or the next country and whichever continent, there will be no itching in terms of where will the funds come from, how is the ticket going to book, where is the accommodation going to be made, and no, all of that has to be taken care of. So the travels throughout and sojourn throughout Babylon will be consistent and as trouble-free as possible from the beginning to my end when I return to Jamaica. So I want the item grasp that vision there in the item, in the virgins and sisters in them, cranium. Forged by Time Limited has been incorporated. And we are in the process of setting up a world tour, beginning in Jamaica and then going through the Caribbean and then going through the entire Americas and then going up into Europe. And that tour will be named Forged by Time. So Forged by Time Limited Corporation will be the entity that will be spearheading the Forged by Time Global Tour. Since we're talking about traveling these countries and islands, doing radio and television interviews, meeting with liberation groups to present the doctrines and teachings, and then moving on to the next country. No, we cannot undertake this tour without taking first and foremost our financial obligation to make this tour possible. So we are not going to entertain any type of fantasy, say, well, this will just happen because we want it to happen, or we desire it to happen, or we hope that it will happen. No, we are going to engage each and every practical step to carry out this sojourn. So when we speak of travels, once we get all of the information from each and every island, clearly explaining how the accommodations will be made both financially and travel-wise, then we within Forged by Time Limited Corporation will structure and formalize the thing, and then make each and every representative in that country who will be representing the Forged by Time Global Tour for their own particular country, so they can be able to, we will furnish them with the entire collected data that will cover the entire tour. So each and every representative of this tour in each and every country will have the entire global itinerary for where the tour will be going from one country to the next. Now we're going to deal with sponsorship of this tour, because when you're talking about a world global tour, it needs sponsorship. It needs strong financial backing. And when we're speaking of strong financial backing, that is also another reason why we had to corporatize Forged by Time Limited Corporation. So we do all financial transaction above board in the eyes of the legal system, so that they can see and determine, and so that you and I who are participating and contributing financially in the store do not engage in any type of shenanigans. That's one thing when you talk about black liberation struggle, you know. And anytime you bring up finance and financing, everybody antenna go up. And it should go up. It should go up. Because there's so much shenanigans when you talk about finance in this world. Not only amongst our people, but even more so amongst the Babylonians. So we have a legitimate right to make sure that things are above board, moving forward with this corporate entity. Now, one of the things also that we have to touch upon is this. My intention is not to come and travel to any place throughout this world without first and foremost making sure that there's a consistency by the representative of this Forged by Time global tour of each individual in these countries. So these individuals who are going to volunteer to undertake this responsibility has to be people that's really having some sense of integrity, some sense of honesty, some sense of trust, some sense of dedication to this world tour that's coming up. We are already made contact in Europe. You understand? We have some professors in Europe who are willing to organize and structurize the lectures and presentation and university campus throughout all of Europe. From Sweden coming all the way down. So the European tour, in order to structurize these lectures and presentation that Forged by Time Limited Corporation is going to undertake throughout the world with the Forged by Time Global Tour, I have to make sure that once we get into Europe, we do not get isolated in these presentation and lectures just to those who are representing the system. So that is another part that Forged by Time Limited Corporation will have to make sure that once we touch the European leg, we don't just get totally isolated into the academic, intellectual community and don't get access to the local community, Rastafari community and people within each and every of those countries. That's for that. Now, in order for run a corporation, you're talking about employing people, personal assistant, secretary, because these are offices which were established once you going through the incorporation process of incorporating a business or incorporating an organization in any country on the face of the world. How do you pay those who are performing the professional necessities within that corporation? People cannot get up and do these things for free. If you're talking about running an efficient entity, legal entity, you have to employ people, you have to employ secretaries, you have to buy computers, you have to do all these things. If you're talking about optimal efficiency in anything that we undertake. So in order to corporatize and have this administrative structure within Forged by Time Limited Corporation, the legs of the tour from each and every country will have to have the ability to furnish Forged by Time Corporation with X amount of funds in order to keep the corporate structure, administrative structure going. Like I said earlier in this is no one-man band. It's not just Gillie priest getting up and buying some ticket and running off to different country. No, it will never be like that. We are now functioning within a corporate legal entity structure which adds to be administratively dealing with so that we can move forward in this world. You understand? So, I'm going to say this. First and foremost, before I leave, we're going to have to set up the corporate administrative structure. So we're going to solicit, not at this very moment, because the account has to be set up. But henceforth, after we set up that structure, the banking system, because this is what we have already incorporated. We have already given the right to function as a corporate, legal corporate entity. But those documents now has to be taken to a financial institution for verification in order to establish the corporate account. This corporate account will be established within 10 days. Once we establish this corporate account within 10 days, then what Forged by Time Limited Incorporated is going to do is to solicit funds from the community to be placed into the corporate account in order that we can start to hire people to do the administrative work for the legal entity of Forged by Time Limited Corporation. So we're talking about several things and I'm going to touch upon them again so that the vision becomes clear. We have already established the legal corporation known as Forged by Time Limited. This legal corporation needs to now set the process in going of establishing the administrative organ to administer this corporation. In order to establish this administrative organ to run this corporation, we have to first establish the corporate account. This corporate account will be established within 10 days based upon legal requirements. Once we have done that, we are going to solicit funds to be donated to this legal entity in order we can hire an administrative team. Once this administrative team come in place, then this administrative team will be able to coordinate their actions with volunteer members in each and every country throughout the world who would like to bring this Forged by Time global tour to their country to present lectures and readings before the liberation organizations within these countries, and these individual islands will have to be able to financially support the travels and the expenses that is going to be necessary while I'm in their country and then to go on to the next country. So each and every individual country will undertake the financial responsibility of accommodating the Forged by Time World Tour. So hopefully, and there's more development to come on that, but that is just to share the basic vision. Now in terms of Jamaica, I have listeners and subscribers in Jamaica who have been trying, and other people throughout the world have been trying since the inception of this program to reach out to me. Who have been trying to reach out to me in order to have some type of interaction. But a lot of time, the reason why I don't really entertain those reach out, I really do not want to get involved too much upon an individual basis with individual, because that creates a lot of complications. But now that we have established a legal corporate entity, then henceforth your communication will be with and through Forged by Time Limited Corporation. And then if it becomes necessary for us to meet either on a personal basis or on a one-on-one basis, then we will do that. But we do not want where inefficiency gets set into the struggle, where I'm trying to meet with 300, 400, 500 individuals on an individual basis. That's a waste of time and waste of resources, even though great ideas may have been the intention to share. But efficiency is what we must strive after. Optimal efficiency has to be the part of the foundation upon which we build this corporate entity and this global Forged by Time tour, which we envision will be undertaken when everything is set up by the middle of next year, because we're not going to rush this thing. We're going to put the necessary structures in place in order to make this tour a memorable tour that will never be forgotten upon the face of this earth with this legal entity. Now, so far we have covered that, and that is just in a summary fashion. We're going to get back to that as the program go along, and then we move forward. Now the thesis, we have been reading from this thesis and giving explanation. And this is a thesis that was submitted for those who have for the first time listening to this program. This is a thesis that was submitted by myself to the New York Theological Seminary when I was undertaking a master's degree. And this was a necessary document that I had to submit to the university in order for me to be awarded the master's degree. And 2 presentations ago, I gave the introduction to this document. The last presentation, we covered the contextualization of the reasons behind why we need to establish the Rastafari Promise Key Seminary in order to give some structure to a cadre form of theological or ideological truth. Make your choice for this organization to move forward. So today, we are going to touch upon the heading of Rastafari. And under this Rastafari heading, we are going to give the cultural reason, the cultural / historical reason why we have found it necessary to reintroduce and re-establish the Rastafari Promise Key Seminary on a global level. Now, I'm going to read from this, and once I read from this, then I will give clarity. And this is under the heading Rastafari. According to the doctrinal history of Rastafari, the African race has been displaced from the stage of history and has been relegated to the fringes of human progression and interrelationship. This forced backward march for more than 2,000 years has been one in which Africans were not only forced out of humanity's interrelationships in all disciplines that has led to the progress and development, but in the receding historical reality, Africans were also denied and stripped of their entire mental existential frame of reference, while their very humanity was challenged through the application of fraudulent scientific and other scholastic discipline. If we carry our mind and go back 2,500 years ago, and hence earlier, we were the masters of this world economically, politically, ideologically, theologically, scientifically. We were masters because remember, no matter how Western civilization tries to hide it, we bequeathed civilization to this world. Civilization comes from the head of the Nile in Africa. All intellectuals and academia know that. See, but what happened, say, from 2,500 years ago? We were conspired against by all other nations and people and pushed off the world stage. And this pushing off the world stage were done militarily in conjunction with other auxiliary acts that reinforce the military force removal and coercive act that moved the African race off the world stage to the point where we reach centuries after that act was initiated, where we had no say upon the world stage. We heard of the great world leaders, leading institutions, leading cultural and historical development. Nowhere is an African man or an African woman is to be seen for centuries upon centuries, for millenniums. Nations and people do not rise and fall upon their own accord alone, but by true conspiracy and diabolical undertaking. And that was how we were removed from the world stage. Where for centuries, for millenniums, decisions that were made and taken to move the world to and fro in whatever direction, no African opinions were even sought and taken into consideration. We became a non-entity. And that transgression has been in place since 2,500 years, right up to this very day. Right up to this very day. And this is not to negate a semblance of progress which we have made as a people. Because yes, we have made progress. And we can say certain progress has been made within the last 50 to 80 years. You can say that. Maybe not to the speed of which we would have liked, but we have made progress. But the structure, the international, legal, and national structure that have been meshed in place beginning 2,500 years is largely in place. And this imprisonment in this wider society where we find ourselves is not an imprisonment from which we can escape through individual acts. For one, you cannot escape individually, and two, an individual escape cannot accomplish the escape of a collective group. So even if you believe and think you can escape from this Babylonian system individually, which you can never do, but also entertain that talk. If you believe that you can escape it individually under the individualistic capitalist doctrine, 3 billion black man on the face of the earth cannot escape it because of your one escape. And this is not to denigrate an individual achieving some form of success within his own captive state. No, we're going to big up your accomplishment and hope that it motivates others to seek out that form of accomplishment. But do not confuse your individual accomplishment and saying that can free 3 billion black men on the face of the earth. Let's not carry to that level. So what we have laid out here so far is that we have been removed from the world stage, and anything dealing with human development since that inception, the African race has never been taken into consideration. We were not even allowed to speak, not allowed to interact on an international, political, and economical level. We were reduced to becoming nothing but raw material to advance the civilization of all other race and nation upon the face of the earth. Just as you look at diamond and gold and cobalt and magnesium and aluminum, the African race was just one of those other natural resources. That is what we were reduced to. We were reduced from being the masters of this earth to becoming nothing but a raw resource of power, to power and be the fuel of all other civilization upon the face of the earth. So that is what being laid out in that part. In these challenges of an existential nature, Africans were relieved of their cosmological and philosophical worldview through which they had fashioned their existence for thousands of years, while alien worldviews were imposed upon them, which pertain to all the required and essential theological, philosophical, ideological references necessary for the cultivation of existential prerogatives. Now, every nation and people, I'm going to give an example. Every nation and people has a folklore story of how they and the world came into existence. Now, when you speak of a folklore story, you're not speaking of something that has to be true. Matter of fact, none of them is true. Because human being brings into existence a folklore of how they as a people came into creation and how the world around them was created. That folklore comes out of their raw imagination. Every European nation, every race, every nation, every group of people has a story to tell of how their people first came upon this earth and how the world, which they knew, was created. That's a part of the phenomena of human existence. We have this deep inert desire to know where we came from and where this world came from. And we're talking at a time when there was no scientific tools at a certain level to make these folklore more practical and more real. No, but people do not allow vacuums in their lives. So we create stories. And from the stories that we create of our beginning and of how we believe the earth and the world was created, we pass down these stories to the future generations. And those future generations that have any type of sense, they do not discard those stories. But they build dramas, they build movies, they do presentations, they do plays out of these stories where they are able to hold on to the visions and conceptualization of their ancestors and build the world in which they live today and in the future out of those stories. You want an example? Look how much people in this world running around in a Nike sneakers. Yeah, in a Nike sneakers. Nike is a whole ancient Greek god in their folklore and stories. And what these people do is that they take those folklores and concretize it in today's world. They do not look at it as all those old folklore concepts were just wild imagination of the people, so we are going to discard it and move along. No, they integrate all those folklore stories that the most ancient ancestors came up with, and they integrate it within their present material world. There is something in this present world that is named after each and every one of their folklore gods. Gods that they may not even know any longer worship or praise. But today when you go to the theaters throughout the Americas and throughout Europe, they still perform these plays in the present time. Speaking of the Greek gods, speaking of the ancient old stories, they build plays and documentaries and name material things of those wild imagination. They do that because they have no intention of leaving their ancient ancestors behind. They bring them into the present and the future with them. And what do they do? While they try to preserve the folklore of their ancient ancestors, they denigrate our ancient ancestors' doctrine. And they have degraded to such a point that we ourselves have turned it up today and ridicule our own folklores. We see no value in it. So what we do, in order to exhibit our modern Western intellectual attainment, we get up and we speak of Aristotle, and we speak of Herodotus, and we speak of Plato, just to sound intelligent, because most of it don't even make sense to me either. But once you can quote and repeat these ancient European different folklore, we tend to identify that type of knowledge with intelligence, that we have been schooled, that we have been educated. But ask us about our ancient folklore, we are so embarrassed we don't even want to speak about it. If we speak about John Kuno, and we speak about Brother Nancy, and we speak about Hobia, and we speak about Voodoo, and we speak about all these things which we should apply our investigative intellectual, we feel embarrassed. But we are not embarrassed about speaking about the allegory of the cave. A matter of fact, black man love quote the allegory of the cave. Because we all tend to believe that by being able to tell that story, that European story, that European analogy, we believe we are well schooled and well read. This is how them turn the world upside down. So this damage where we was moved off the world stage, where our folklore was wiped off our mind, where the things, our cosmological ideas, how the world function, how we saw our when all these things was wiped off our brain, then they were replaced with Western European conceptualization. Meaning that we want to think like European, we want to dress like European, we want to eat like European, we want to act like European, and for most of all, we want to go to Europe. These are not accidents of history. These were deliberate acts that were perpetrated upon us. Why we find ourselves in the state where we find ourselves in? Why we find ourselves in the hole where we are trying to dig out of? It has been a situation where we are placed in today that God commenced 2,500 years ago. And each of the diabolical evil acts build upon each other. Where today we are locked into a political and an economic system. But you want to hear the truth? We were placed in it militarily, and it's only militarily you're going to get out of it. Now, free speech now going to get you out of it. Free speech may enhance your ability. Your freedom to say what you want to say has been so emasculated that no matter what you say, if once I just talk, you talk, Babylon give you that. And we have bought into that emasculated concept of free speech so much that we love ball up every man entitled to their own opinion. Every man free to say what he want to say. Me can talk how me want to talk. Yeah, you can do that because it has been emasculated. Picture you as an individual sit in front of a powerful individual who control your destiny and your life, and him say what you want to say, and when you're done talk, you still go lock in. Because so them used to do it in a prison, you know. You will go in front of a correctional officer, a prison guard, and you are contesting something, one of each other's position about whatever it may be. And when you don't talk and you blow steam and you think you tell him, say you convince him, say you're right, and just say, you don't talk, and you say, go lock in. Go in and close the door behind yourself. That is how it is in the wider society. You can come out and vent. And when you don't vent, go back on your job, go do your 9 to 5 and pay your bills. Because the system don't care about your venting. Because them never control this world just by venting. Them take it and placed us in the position where we place ourselves. Where black man and black woman is the most imprisoned people throughout the world. Africans are the more people who exist in poverty than any other race and people throughout the world. Africans are the most dispossessed people economically, politically, spiritually, culturally, academically throughout the world. You think that is just because they're intelligent and you just lack intelligence? You believe it's because you don't know for work the system and them know for work? No, man. It is a mechanically imposed position after consultation amongst themselves to place us in, and we have been placed in it. And every time leaders and organizations try to rise up, to come up and bring up our people, them eliminate it. And when it comes to individual, them kill them. So don't run around believing say this thing is an accident. This was the reality of this situation was intellectually and militarily and economically and politically imposed upon us. And this is what is being laid out right here, showing, because they have taken away, especially our historical and cosmological knowledge of who we are as a people and how things were brought into existence through our folklore, that by them moving that away. And you want to test it, you can go test it. Go to any people throughout the world and ask them to tell you them cosmological and existential story. And let me tell you a story. How the first individual for their tribe or their nation was brought into existence by whatever God. And how their God had created this world. And if there's a million group of people, different group of people on the face of this earth, you can get a million different stories. And that story which was bequeathed to them by their ancestors is tied into their present reality. Come in the Caribbean now and ask us the same question. And see if any of we can answer it. Come in Jamaica, going to Trinidad, going to Barbados, going to St. Vincent and Neither, going to the Grenada, going to all of them. And you ask them, what is your folklore story by your ancient ancestors? Or you as a group was created and how was the world created? And you know the whole of it will tell you. Them tell you the Christian Westernized doctrine as their folklore story. Adam and Eve was created in the garden. Blah, 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 blah. So when since your beginning and existence as a people became the same as those in Europe, because that you go to Europe, that them tell you to. As an appendage to their folklore. So we either going to tell you the Christian conceptualized doctrine of how man and the world was created, or we're going to tell you the one that European folklore that was created to them. But you can travel through the whole Caribbean. And we can't tell you, if a foreigner come to us and say to us, tell us the folklore of your beginning and how the world was created. And we are standing dumbfounded and look like fools and idiots. Not because of our own doing, but what has been beaten out of us for all these centuries. It's in short, Africans had lost their existential consciousness, especially those who had trod through centuries of captivity in the Western world. By and large, their minds have been colonialized among other ways theologically. And now go stop the reasoning at a point there. Just so we can ribbit it a little bit more before we close out this. So part of the undertaking for the Rastafari movement is to straighten out, to point out to the brethren and sisters, for those who may have lacked that understanding, is how we were placed in the position where we are at. Because if we can go back to the beginning of time, before the world was disrupted by interrelationships upon an aggressive nature, each and every group and tribes and nation and people had a story of their own existence. And these stories about their own existence covered how the world was created and how they were created by their own little tribal and grouping gods. Because I point this out in a reason before, At one time there was no imperialist one God throughout the world, Every nation and people are their God. So when you read scripture, you will hear about the God of the Canaanites, the God of the Egyptians, the God of the Israelites, right? Each and every tribe and group in people had their own God. Because it came out of their own folklore story, how their God created them and how their God created the universe. And each of these folklore stories bequeathed to their inheritors a world vision, how they should live, how they should think, how they should see, how they should interact. It helps them create and understand the physical world in which they live. A people who has lost that knowledge, that folklore knowledge of what brought them into existence and brought, is a people who have been captive. More devastating than how they may have been captive physically, but it's how they have been made captive mentally. You can encounter any group of people upon the face of this earth and say, tell me about your God and how your God created you and how God created. Each and every one of them going to tell us that they were the first people that God ever created. Because they could not have said otherwise, because it came out of their own vision. Every nation and group of the people have that story, except those of us who were brought into captive in Babylon. Ask each and every one of us, how were we as a people created? And how was the universe created? And we're going to tell us somebody else's folklore as ours. If that not make us see clearly the position we're in, why it is essential that the Rastafari Promise Key Seminary be established, and that we corporatize and structurize ourselves and go out into the world and seek representative for the forged by time limited in every nation upon the face of the earth. And we're not only going to interact with this world academically and intellectually, but we're going to interact with them physically. And we're going to love those who love us, and we're going to hate those who hate us. We're not going around this thing. We're not going to buy into the concept about love your enemy. We're not loving no enemy about you. We're going to love those who love us, and we're going to hate those who hate us. And that's how the thing said. So in closing our brethren and sisters, and next time we're going to continue on with I have to make a notation which part I stop. So again, just to repeat it, we have undertaken the steps and I was successful in establishing the Forged by Time Limited Corporation. We are now in the process of setting up an administrative body to administer this corporation. And within the next 10 days, we are going to establish the corporate account. Simultaneously, based upon what has been said in this broadcast, we want the brethren and sisters in each and every island and country throughout the world who hear this broadcast or who has knowledge of this broadcast to undertake the responsibility of setting up a receiving structure and to organize lectures to the liberation groups and organize in your country. So once the Forged by Time Limited Corporation is ready, we are going to tour and travel throughout the entire Jamaica, the entire Caribbean, the entire Americas and Europe, wherever we are welcome and accommodated in Europe. I would like to have brethren and sisters who are willing to undertake this, to reach out to me. Just go to the comment section, of these broadcasts and make that comment, and then Forged by Time Limited Corporation representative will be able to reach out to you, and then we can, the organization will be able to establish a better form of communication with you on a more corporate individual basis, and more answer whatever questions you may have, add clarity to what needs to be clarity. So by the middle of next year, Forged by Time Limited Corporation will be able to undertake the Forged by Time Global World Tour, dealing with liberation structure and lectures and readings and more interact on a global level. So we are going to make that world tour there, and it's coming up, and that is the number one objective of the Forged by Time Limited Corporation. So brethren and sisters, I will be reaching out to you all, pleading to you all to support this world tour, to support it demographically, to support it numerically, to support it financially. And we will do. So in closing, I'm going to once again, as practice, Forged by Time. And you will see, this is the name that the corporation was incorporated under. Forged by Time Limited Incorporated. The tour will be Forged by Time Global World Tour. And even this program, the Gillie Priest Rastafari, the Gillie Priest Revolutionary Radio, it comes up under now as of the incorporated date, which was 2 days ago. It comes up under now Forged by Time Limited Corporation. And we're going to flesh out this thing. We're going to establish this corporate entity upon a global world level. But it cannot be done without no support. Right? So those of us who are serious about liberation struggle, serious about moving forward, serious about integrating ourselves into this worldwide, because you see right now Africa rise up, you know. And even though Africa was been in the process of rising up for decades now, it is getting more intensified. And the more the struggle is intensified, is the more we have to deeper embed ourselves into it. And in order for us to deeper embed ourselves into it, we have to not only do it individually, but we must also do it collectively. And in order for us to do it collectively, we have to corporatize the entity, and that's why we did this. So know that, people, we have now been corporatized. Forged by Time Limited Incorporated. So we have the corporate laws now for access. And henceforth we move forward. Set up our structures. And those who are with it, welcome aboard. So until next time, again, support the book Forged by Time. Again, support Forged by Time Limited Incorporated Organization. Again, support Forged by Time Global World Tour that's coming up. And we need more than talk. We need physical support. We need financial support. We need demographic support. We need cultural support. We need all of the support that we can get, because we have to move this thing forward. So until that time, again, brethren and sisters, thanks for listening. Thanks to our listeners and subscribers. This is Gillie Priest Revolutionary Radio, an entity of Forged by Time Limited Incorporated. Thank you very much.